The late afternoon sun cast long shadows over the grocery store parking lot. Cars rumbled in and out, shopping carts rattled over the asphalt, and the occasional honk broke the monotony. The teen had just stepped out of the store, a bag of snacks in one hand and his phone in the other, when he noticed the old man. The elderly gentleman was struggling with a large, heavy-looking box beside a sleek black car. His frail arms trembled under the weight as he attempted to lift it into the trunk. For a second, the teen considered just walking past. After all, it wasn't his problem. But something about the man's effort, the way his legs shook as he adjusted his grip, made him stop. "Need some help, sir?" the boy asked, stepping closer. The old man looked up, his piercing gray eyes meeting the teen's gaze. He hesitated, then nodded. "I'd appreciate that, son." The boy set his bag down and grabbed the box, surprised at how dense it was. "Dang, what's in here?" "Bricks," he joked, shifting his stance to get a better grip. The old man chuckled, though there was something strange about his laughter, like he knew a secret no one else did. "Something like that." With a grunt, the teen heaved the box into the trunk, which closed with a quiet click. Wiping his hands on his jeans, he turned back to the man, expecting a simple "thank you" before they went their separate ways. Instead, the old man studied him with an odd expression, part gratitude, part something else. "You're a good kid," the man finally said. "Not many would stop to help." The teen shrugged. "It's no big deal." The old man smiled, but it wasn't just a regular smile, it was knowing, like he was seeing something beyond the moment. "We'll see," he murmured. Before the teen could ask what that meant, the man got into the driver's seat, and the black car rolled away, disappearing down the road. Weird guy, the teen thought, grabbing his bag and heading home. Just an ordinary good deed. Or so he thought. That night, as he lay in bed, the image of the old man's face lingered in his mind. There was something about the way he had looked at him, something unsettling yet familiar. But eventually, sleep claimed him, and the thought faded into dreams. The next morning, just as he was finishing breakfast, a deep rumbling outside made him glance toward the window. A sleek black car, the same one from yesterday, pulled up in front of his house. His stomach tightened. The engine idled, humming softly, like a panther ready to pounce. Then, the door opened. And a tall, well-dressed man stepped out. He wasn't the old man from yesterday. And something about him screamed that this wasn't just a coincidence. The teen barely had time to process what was happening before the man strode toward the front door, his knock firm, deliberate. The boy's mother answered, her expression shifting from curiosity to confusion as the man handed her a sealed envelope. "No explanation?" she asked. The man simply shook his head. "He'll understand soon enough." And with that, he turned, walked back to the black car, and drove away. The teen's pulse pounded in his ears. What had he just gotten himself into? The teen stood frozen in the living room, staring at the envelope in his mother's hands. "What is this?" she muttered, turning it over as if expecting an answer to appear on the blank white surface. The boy's stomach churned. He didn't know why, but something told him that whatever was inside wasn't meant for her. Can I see it?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. His mother gave him a wary look but handed over the envelope. The paper felt thick, expensive. No return address, no markings, just his name, handwritten in precise black ink. He hesitated, then tore it open. A small, metallic key slid into his palm. It was unlike any key he had ever seen, sleek, silver, and strangely cold to the touch, almost as if it wasn't made of normal metal. His breath caught as he unfolded the single sheet of paper inside. The note was handwritten in the same careful script. "You helped me, now it's my turn. Meet me at the address below, alone." Beneath the message was an address on the outskirts of town. No name, no explanation. just an eerie invitation. The boy swallowed hard. "What does it say?" his mother asked, peering over his shoulder. Nothing. Some kind of mistake," he lied, stuffing the note back into the envelope. She frowned. Why would someone hand-deliver a mistake? Good question. His mind raced. The old man from the store, the box, the car, the way he had looked at him like he knew something. It wasn't random. And now, someone else was involved. His mother kept watching him, concern creeping into her features. "Honey, is there something you're not telling me?" He forced a casual shrug. "Nah. Probably some scam or something. I'll toss it." She didn't seem convinced, but after a moment, she sighed and turned back to the kitchen. His fingers tightened around the key in his pocket. He had no idea why, but every instinct told him that whatever this was, it was just the beginning. And for some reason, he needed to know the truth. Later that night. The house was quiet. His mom had gone to bed early, and the distant hum of the city had faded into the cool night air. The teen sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the address scribbled on the note. His rational mind screamed, "Don't do it." But another part of him, the same part that had stopped to help the old man, whispered, "You have to." He grabbed his hoodie, shoved the key into his pocket, and carefully cracked open his window. The night air was crisp as he climbed out, dropping silently onto the lawn. A few minutes later, he was pedaling his bike through empty streets, the darkened city slipping past in a blur. The address led beyond the outskirts, past warehouses and deserted lots. Each turn took him further from anything familiar. Finally, he reached the destination. A massive, abandoned warehouse loomed ahead, its windows dark, its walls covered in faded graffiti. A single dim light flickered above the entrance. The boy hesitated, his breath visible in the cold night air. Then, from the shadows, a figure stepped forward. The old man. But something was different. He no longer looked frail or weak. His posture was straight, his movements smooth. His eyes, sharp and alert, locked onto the teen. "You came," the old man said, his voice steady. The teen nodded slowly. "What's going on? Why did you send me this?" The man exhaled, as if deciding how much to say. "The box you helped me with," he said finally. It wasn't just heavy. It was dangerous. The boy's pulse quickened. What was in it? The old man studied him for a long moment. Then, just as he opened his mouth to answer. Boom! A deafening explosion rocked the warehouse. The teen stumbled back as fire and smoke erupted from the far side of the building. The ground trembled beneath his feet. Then, shadows moved in the smoke. Figures in tactical gear, closing in fast. The old man's face hardened. "We need to run. Now." Before the boy could react, the man grabbed his arm and pulled him into the darkness. The chase had begun. The teen barely had time to process the explosion before the old man yanked him through the wreckage and into the cold, narrow tunnel beneath the warehouse. The air was thick with dust, the sounds of the blast echoing in the distance. The boy's heart pounded in his chest as they hurried down the dark path. "Who are those people?" the boy gasped, his breath shallow as he stumbled to keep up. "They're after you now," the old man replied, his voice calm despite the chaos around them. "And they won't stop until they find you." They ran for what felt like miles, their footsteps echoing off the damp stone walls. The boy's mind was reeling. One moment, he was helping an old man with a box, and now he was running from armed strangers through an underground tunnel. "What's going on?" he asked, almost pleading. "Who are they? What's in the box?" The old man slowed for a moment, just enough for the teen to catch his breath. He didn't speak right away, his eyes scanning the shadows ahead. "They're not from here," the old man said quietly. "They come from another place, another world." The teen's brain couldn't quite process the words. What? Another world? What do you mean? The old man looked at him then, his expression serious. I'm not from here either. And neither are you now. The boy stopped dead in his tracks, shock ripping through him. What are you talking about? I'm part of something much bigger than you realize, the old man continued, his eyes burning with intensity. The box you helped me with? It wasn't just some random item. It was proof. Proof that something dangerous is hiding right under our noses. And now, because of you, it's your fight too. A chill ran through the boy. I don't understand. What do you mean it's my fight? The old man's gaze softened. You've been chosen. You don't have a choice. But I can help you. Suddenly, a sharp noise echoed through the tunnel, footsteps, heavy and fast. The old man didn't hesitate. He grabbed the boy's arm again and pulled him to a narrow side passage just as shadows moved into view. The figures from before, tactical gear, glowing weapons, had arrived. They were closing in on them. The old man pushed the boy forward, his voice low but urgent. Keep running. I'll hold them off. No, the boy protested, his heart hammering in his chest. I'm not leaving you. The old man glanced at him, a grim smile on his face. You have to. Trust me. Before the boy could protest again, the man pushed him into the side passage and slammed a door shut between them. Alone now, the teen's pulse roared in his ears. He stumbled down the dark corridor, the sound of boots pounding behind him. The wall seemed to close in around him as he ran faster, trying to outrun the terror threatening to overtake him. Finally, he burst through a thick metal door and into an underground hideout, breathing hard and feeling like he might collapse from the strain. The room was dimly lit, filled with strange equipment. A few people, dressed in similar tactical gear to the men chasing them, turned to look as the boy stumbled in. Is he with you? One of them asked, clearly not expecting a kid to walk through the door. The old man had said he was part of something bigger. But this place, this felt like a whole new world. Before the boy could answer, another voice spoke up from the corner of the room. He's with us now. The boy's head whipped around, his eyes locking on a figure standing by a control panel. The man looked older than the others, his face lined with age, his eyes sharp as he watched the boy closely. I'm not sure you're ready for this, the older man said, stepping forward. The teen swallowed. Ready for what? The older man's eyes flickered with something like regret. To learn the truth. And then, he spoke the words that would change everything. The world you know? It's not the world you think it is. The boy's mind buzzed with confusion, his body still trembling from the sprint through the tunnels. The older man's words echoed in his head, the world you know? It's not the world you think it is. He looked around the hidden base, an underground complex filled with high-tech equipment, maps on the walls, and glowing screens displaying cryptic information. There were more people here, all wearing tactical gear and staring at him like he was the center of some grand conspiracy. Sit down, the older man said, motioning to a chair. The boy's legs were barely holding him up, but he obeyed, sinking into the seat. The older man came closer, his face grave. We didn't want to involve you, but it's too late now. You've already seen too much. The teen opened his mouth to speak, but the words caught in his throat. His mind was racing, trying to process everything, the explosion, the chase, the strange people in tactical gear, and now, the revelation that everything he knew was a lie. What's going on? He finally asked. Why are they after me? What's in that box? The older man glanced around the room, as if checking to make sure they weren't being watched. Then, in a low voice, he answered. Those people aren't human. Not really. The boy's heart skipped a beat. What do you mean, not human? They're aliens, the older man continued. They've infiltrated our world, disguised as humans, for decades. And the box you helped me with? It contained proof. Proof that they're here, manipulating everything. The teen's mind was spinning. Aliens? His brain couldn't make sense of it. He had always imagined aliens to be something from a movie or a science fiction book, not a hidden reality. You're not from here either, are you? The boy asked quietly. The older man shook his head. No. I was once one of them, before I defected. They're dangerous, and they've been controlling everything, governments, corporations, even the media. But now, we've gathered enough evidence to expose them. You've just become a part of that fight. The teen shook his head in disbelief. I'm just a kid. I can't fight aliens. You have more power than you realize, the older man replied, his eyes hardening with resolve. And we can train you. But you have to choose. Stay and fight, or leave and pretend you never saw anything. The boy's thoughts were a whirlwind. He wanted to run, to forget everything and go back to his normal life. But something inside him, a sense of duty, a lingering feeling from when he helped the old man, pulled him toward the truth. I'll stay, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The older man nodded, a faint smile on his lips. Good. Welcome to the resistance. Before the boy could process what had just happened, an alarm blared throughout the base, piercing through the tense silence. WOO. WOO. Security breach in Sector 7. Panic erupted. People scrambled to their stations, weapons clanking as they prepared for whatever threat was coming. The boy's heart raced again, and for the first time since the explosion, he felt truly afraid. What's happening? He asked, standing up quickly. They found us, the older man said, his expression grim. Get ready. Suddenly, the base's doors slammed shut with a loud clang, locking them inside. The tension in the air was thick as the boy followed the older man through the narrow hallways. This is it, the older man muttered. We have to hold them off long enough to escape. Escape? The boy echoed, his voice trembling. What do you mean? Before he could get an answer, the room shook with a deafening boom, followed by a second explosion. They're here, the older man said, his eyes hardening with determination. And they're coming for you. A loud crash sounded outside the door. The base was under attack. The boy could hear the heavy footsteps approaching, the clanking of metallic armor growing louder. The time to run had passed. It was time to fight. The boy's heart pounded in his chest as the sound of boots pounding down the hallway grew louder. He followed the older man down a series of tight, dimly lit corridors, his mind racing. There was no turning back now. He had been thrust into something that defied everything he had ever known about the world. They reached a large steel door, and the older man punched in a code. The door opened with a low hiss, revealing a control room filled with monitors and screens. Inside, several people, some of them young like the boy, others much older, were working quickly, glancing at the door as they arrived. Everyone, hold your positions, the older man barked, and the room immediately snapped into action. The boy was ushered into a corner of the room, where a woman handed him a headset. Stay here, she said firmly, her voice cold. You're not involved in this part. The boy opened his mouth to protest, but the older man shot him a look. Listen to her. You'll be in more danger if you don't. He nodded reluctantly and took a seat, watching as the woman's fingers danced over the keyboard. We've got a breach, she said, looking up at the older man. They've bypassed our perimeter defenses. The older man's face tightened. They're faster than we thought. What now? A man in tactical gear asked, approaching the group. We hold them off, the older man said. We're not letting them get to the boy. As the tension in the room mounted, the boy's thoughts spiraled. The people in this underground base were part of something far bigger than he ever could have imagined. They weren't just hiding from the aliens, they were actively fighting them. The older man approached the boy, placing a hand on his shoulder. "I know this is overwhelming," he said. "But you're not alone in this. There's a team of us, people like you who've seen the truth and chosen to fight back." The boy didn't say anything at first. His mind was too full of questions. What was his role in all of this? What was he supposed to do now that he knew the truth? He had just helped an old man with a box, and now his life was turned upside down. "You've got something they want," the older man continued, as if reading his thoughts. "Something the aliens need in order to keep their cover intact. And we need to make sure they don't get it." The boy blinked. "What's in the box?" The older man's eyes darkened. "It doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that you're here. You're part of the team now. And we need you." Before the boy could respond, an alarm blared from one of the monitors. "Sector 3 breached. Get ready," the older man shouted. "They're on the move." Suddenly, the room erupted into action. People scrambled to their posts, loading weapons and checking equipment. The boy stood up, adrenaline kicking in. He had no idea what to do, but everything in him screamed that he had to do something. He followed the older man, who was now moving swiftly to a different part of the base. "Stay close," the older man ordered. They moved down another corridor, reaching a set of heavy doors that led to what looked like an armory. The boy's eyes widened at the sight of high-tech weapons, energy guns, body armor, and gadgets that seemed straight out of a science fiction movie. "What is all this?" the boy asked, awe in his voice. "These are our weapons," the older man replied. "And they're your weapons now too." The boy glanced at him, confused. "My weapons? You've got a power that they fear," the older man said. "And it's time you learned how to use it." The boy's head spun. "Power? What power?" The older man gave him a knowing look. "You'll see soon enough." As they moved into the armory, the boy could feel the weight of what was happening crashing down on him. His life was no longer his own. It belonged to something much bigger now, a fight against an alien enemy he had never even known existed. And somehow, he was at the center of it. The next few hours were a blur of preparation, chaos, and fear. The base was under attack, and the boy, still reeling from the information he had learned, couldn't shake the feeling that his world was slipping further and further out of his control. In the midst of the mayhem, the older man led him to a training area, where a few members of the resistance were waiting. "Time to train," the older man said grimly. "We don't have much time, and if you're going to survive this, you need to be ready." The boy was about to protest again when the older man pressed a strange metallic object into his hands. "It's time you learn to fight for real." The boy gripped the strange metallic object tightly in his hands, feeling its smooth surface hum with an almost imperceptible energy. His pulse raced as he looked at the older man, who was already strapping on a high-tech suit of armor. "Don't look so worried," the older man said, trying to mask the seriousness in his tone with a forced grin. "This isn't a game, but I promise you, you're going to be fine. You're stronger than you think." The boy had no idea how he was supposed to feel stronger. He was just a regular kid who had been going about his day when he had helped the old man with the box. Now, he was holding some weird weapon in a high-tech underground base, and everything had spiraled into chaos. How could he possibly be ready to fight aliens? "I don't even know what I'm holding," the boy muttered, still feeling out of place. The older man nodded. "You'll understand soon enough. That device is a power core. It's a key to unlocking your ability. You might not feel it yet, but it's inside of you. Trust me. It's time you learned how to use it." The boy swallowed hard. He didn't ask what the power was, because deep down, he feared the answer. He could barely process everything that had already happened. He didn't know if he was ready for whatever this power was. But he also knew that he didn't have much of a choice. The older man moved toward a set of training dummies, which were standing tall and menacing in the center of the room. He grabbed a weapon from the wall, a sleek gun that seemed too advanced to be real, and aimed it at one of the dummies. Without hesitation, he fired, and the dummy was instantly reduced to rubble. The boy's jaw dropped. "That's what we're up against," the older man said, his voice hard. "We need to be better. Faster. Smarter. And you need to learn quickly." The boy's heart hammered in his chest. He had always been the kind of kid who ran from danger, not toward it. He wasn't sure if he was even capable of fighting, let alone surviving in a war that seemed so far beyond his understanding. "Okay," the boy said after a long pause, trying to steady his nerves. "I'm ready." The older man nodded and tossed him a gun similar to his own. "Start with this. Get used to the weight and the feeling. Don't focus on the target right now. Just focus on what the weapon feels like in your hands." The boy's fingers curled around the weapon as if it was a foreign object. He raised it hesitantly and fired. The shot rang out with a deafening crack, but the blast went wide, missing the target entirely. "Not bad," the older man said, eyeing him closely. "But you'll need to get quicker. These things don't wait around for you to figure it out." The boy's eyes burned with frustration. He wasn't used to feeling like this, out of control, unsure of himself. The pressure was immense, and the alien forces were closing in on them. "You've got to believe you can do this," the older man said, his voice quieter now. "You have a unique ability, something the aliens didn't expect. And they're terrified of it." The boy frowned, still confused. "What's so special about me? I'm just a regular kid." The older man gave him a pointed look. "No. You're not regular. You've got the potential to do things that most people can't. Your instincts, your reflexes, they're stronger than you know." The boy swallowed. "But what if I can't control it?" "You will. I promise you. Just trust yourself." They spent hours training. The boy was exhausted, both physically and mentally. His hands shook as he tried to align his aim, and each time, the target seemed to move faster, slipping away just as he thought he had it. But little by little, something inside him started to click. It was as if the weight of the weapon was syncing with his body's natural rhythm, and he could feel the hum of energy growing stronger in his chest. He didn't fully understand it, but he began to believe in the old man's words. Maybe there was something inside him, a power that could help them win this war. As the training session came to a close, the boy stood, drenched in sweat, breathing heavily but with an unmistakable fire in his eyes. "You're getting there," the older man said, a rare smile crossing his face. "You're not ready yet, but you will be." The boy nodded, still reeling from the intensity of the training. But there was something else now, something he couldn't ignore. The feeling of purpose was beginning to settle in. He wasn't just part of a story anymore. This was real. This was his life now. He looked down at the power core in his hands once again. His role was still unclear, but one thing was certain, he had to keep going. The future of humanity, maybe even the future of the planet, depended on him now. The hours passed in a blur of grueling training and brief moments of rest. The boy had learned much about the technology, the weapons, and the ancient enemy they were fighting. But despite all his training, despite everything he had learned, one question kept gnawing at him. What if he wasn't ready? What if it was too late? Suddenly, the sound of an alarm pierced the air, followed by a voice over the intercom. "Alert! Alert! Hostiles detected near the perimeter. Prepare for immediate defense." The older man's face hardened. "It's time." The boy's heart skipped a beat as the alarm blared through the underground base. The walls shook slightly, a reminder of the danger that had already come too close. His mind raced as he fumbled with the equipment strapped to his body, feeling a growing unease in the pit of his stomach. This was no longer just training. This was real. The older man moved swiftly, his face a mask of determination. "Get to the control room," he ordered, his voice sharp. "We need to lock down the perimeter. Fast." The boy hesitated for just a moment, his mind still spinning with everything he had learned in the past few hours. But there was no time to second guess. He nodded and followed the older man, adrenaline flooding his veins. They raced down narrow corridors lit by harsh overhead lights, passing through steel doors and reinforced walls. The air felt thick with tension, the hum of the facility now replaced by the distant sounds of chaos. The boy's breathing quickened. What had they missed? How had the enemy gotten this close? They reached the control room, a sleek, high-tech space filled with blinking monitors and a few other members of the group, all busy coordinating their defense. The boy could feel the gravity of the moment pressing in on him, but he tried to steady his nerves. "Status," the older man barked at one of the tech specialists. "Hostiles are within range," the technician replied, not looking up from his console. "Looks like they've breached the outer layers. We're going to need backup." The older man turned to the boy. "We need to defend this base. You ready?" The boy clenched his fists. He had no idea if he was ready, but he couldn't back down. He had come too far. "I'm ready," he said, his voice steady despite the storm brewing in his chest. Before the older man could respond, the sound of gunfire echoed down the hallway. A blast of energy ripped through the air, followed by the screech of metal twisting and bending. The base was under attack, and it was happening faster than anyone had expected. "Get to your posts," the older man shouted. "I'll cover you." The boy turned, running to the nearest station where he was supposed to assist with the defense systems. As he rushed through the halls, another explosion rocked the building, sending vibrations through the floor and the walls. Just then, he saw something that made his blood run cold. A familiar black car, the black car, was parked outside the entrance, its sleek silhouette unmistakable. Before he could process it, the door to the control room slammed open, and a figure stepped inside, tall and imposing. The boy's heart skipped a beat as he recognized the face. It was one of the team members, but his eyes were empty, hollow. There was no recognition there. No humanity. The boy's mind raced. Betrayal. It's happening right now. The man who had once fought alongside them was now working with the enemy. "Take him down," the older man snapped, his voice filled with a cold fury. But before they could act, the traitor pulled a hidden weapon from beneath his jacket, firing a blast of energy that hit one of the technicians square in the chest. The man crumpled to the floor, unconscious. The boy froze. He had seen things in his short life, but this? This was something else entirely. The traitor had been with them. How could he have turned so quickly? How had they missed it? The older man didn't waste time questioning it. He tackled the traitor to the ground, but just as he was about to secure him, a group of soldiers, dressed in the same tactical gear as the ones from the warehouse, burst through the door, flooding the room. "Get out of here," the older man yelled. "Now!" The boy's instincts screamed at him to run, but something held him in place. His feet were glued to the floor as he watched the chaos unfold. The traitor grinned, his eyes gleaming with malice. "You can't stop this. They've already won." The older man's face hardened. "We'll see about that." A firefight erupted between the two sides, and the boy ducked behind a console, heart racing. He had never felt more out of his element, but he couldn't stay hidden forever. He had a choice now, to be part of the solution or to stay out of the way and let the others fight for him. Without thinking, the boy grabbed his weapon and stepped into the fray. The air crackled with the sound of energy blasts and shouts as he fired his gun at one of the advancing soldiers. The blast hit its target, sending the soldier sprawling to the ground. The boy's hands trembled, but he didn't hesitate. Another soldier appeared around the corner, and this time, he was ready. He fired again. The boy had never felt such fear, but somehow, in that moment, he was also more alive than he had ever been. Each shot seemed to bring a sense of clarity, as though his instincts were finally kicking in. But the victory was short-lived. The traitor, now on his feet, had moved to a secure position, and with a swift gesture, he triggered a device that sent a pulse through the room. The lights flickered, then went out. Darkness. And then, the voice of the traitor echoed through the room, "You can't stop what's already started." The boy felt a chill run down his spine. His mind raced. Had they lost? A moment later, the older man's voice cut through the darkness. "We're not done yet." The world seemed to slow as the darkness closed in. The boy's pulse pounded in his ears, each heartbeat a reminder of how much was at stake. He could barely see anything, only the faint glow of emergency lights flickering through the shadows. But in the distance, the sounds of clashing forces, gunfire, and screams grew louder. The battle wasn't over yet, but it was far from won. The traitor had triggered a blackout, and now the entire base was thrown into chaos. The boy could barely make out the outline of the older man through the dim emergency lights. His heart sank. They were outnumbered, and the traitor's betrayal had tilted the scales in favor of the enemy. "Stay focused," the older man's voice cut through the dark. "We can still win this. But we need to move, now." The boy nodded, though his mind raced with questions. The traitor had been one of them. How could they have been so blind to his true allegiance? The black car, the strange note, the impossible odds, it was all connected. But how? He felt the weight of the metallic key in his pocket. The key, he thought. It had to mean something. It had to be part of the puzzle. Suddenly, the emergency lights flickered and went out, plunging them back into total darkness. The boy's breath caught in his throat as he heard footsteps approaching, heavy and deliberate. A cold sweat broke out on his skin. This was it, this was the moment everything changed. The older man gripped the boy's arm, pulling him into a small, narrow corridor just off the main hall. The walls were thick, but the sound of footsteps in the distance grew closer, the unmistakable sound of soldiers hunting them down. "Stay down," the older man whispered. He slid against the wall, peering cautiously around the corner. "We don't have much time." The boy's mind raced. They were trapped, with no way out. The traitor had sent them into a corner, and now they were running out of options. But then, something clicked. The key. "I need to get to the tech room," the boy said suddenly, his voice tense. "What?" The older man turned to him, confusion flickering in his eyes. "We don't have the time." "I know what the key is for," the boy interrupted, his voice growing more sure. "I saw it before. It's the one thing that can help us destroy their cover-up. It's the key to their main database. If we can upload the data, we can expose everything. The aliens, the betrayal, everything." The older man's eyes narrowed, considering. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." The boy nodded, his resolve hardening. "I have to do this. It's the only way we can win." Without waiting for a response, the boy bolted down the hallway, ducking beneath a low-hanging light fixture. The base seemed endless, filled with twisting corridors, but he knew where the tech room was. The key had to be the answer. As he ran, he could hear the heavy thuds of boots behind him. They were close. Too close. His legs burned with every step, but he pushed on, determination flooding his body. "This is it," he thought, "I have to make it." He turned a sharp corner and slid into the tech room, locking the door behind him just as a group of soldiers reached the hallway. He was out of breath, his chest heaving, but he had to focus. The terminal was right there, glowing softly in the dark. He pulled the key from his pocket, sliding it into the console's input port. A low hum resonated through the room as the system came to life, blinking with cryptic codes and data. The boy's fingers hovered over the keyboard, his heart racing. He had no idea what he was doing, but he couldn't let that stop him. The screen flickered again, and suddenly, a new menu appeared, one he recognized from earlier training. This was it. The heart of the enemy's operations. The one thing that could expose them all. He typed in the commands the older man had shown him, hoping that he was doing it right. His hands shook, but he didn't let up. Time was running out. Outside, the sound of shouts and explosions filled the air. The enemy was closing in. The terminal beeped, and a new message appeared on the screen: data transfer complete. Got it, the boy whispered, relief flooding through him. He grabbed the hard drive attached to the terminal, slipping it into his pocket just as the door was slammed open behind him. The soldiers poured into the room, guns drawn. "Nowhere to run, kid," one of them sneered. The boy didn't hesitate. With a quick move, he grabbed the device from his pocket and activated it. A pulse of energy shot out, knocking the soldiers off their feet, their weapons scattering across the floor. The boy's heart was pounding in his ears as he sprinted toward the exit, barely dodging the shots aimed at him. As he burst through the door, he saw the older man waiting for him, firing off shots at the advancing soldiers. "You got it?" the older man asked, his voice tight with urgency. The boy nodded, barely able to catch his breath. "It's done. We've got the evidence." The older man's eyes glinted. "Good. Now we finish this." Together, they ran into the heart of the battle, where the remaining soldiers were clashing with the aliens in human form. The city streets were a battlefield, but the boy's heart was filled with a sense of purpose he had never felt before. The alien force had hidden in plain sight for too long. But now, it was their turn to be exposed. The battle raged on around them. The city streets had turned into a chaotic war zone. Gunfire echoed through the air, while the alien soldiers, disguised as humans, fought fiercely, determined to protect their secret. But the boy and the older man weren't giving up. They couldn't. With the hard drive securely in hand, they pushed their way through the fray, dodging blasts and bullets as they made their way to the center of the conflict. The boy's heart raced. This was it, the moment that would decide everything. The truth had to come out. There was no turning back now. The older man, though still fast and fierce, moved with a calm precision that only came from years of experience. He fired his weapon with deadly accuracy, taking down one alien after another. The boy was impressed by how effortlessly the man seemed to fight. But he had no time to admire him, his focus was on the task ahead. They reached the central control station, where a large communication device sat on a platform, connected to a satellite. The older man nodded to the boy, signaling that it was time. "You know what to do," the older man said, his voice steady. The boy didn't need any more encouragement. He plugged the hard drive into the device, and the screen flickered to life. The data began transferring, fast, seamless, like a river of truth pouring into the world. The boy watched as a message began to broadcast across every screen, every phone, every device connected to the network. The alien invasion was real. They had infiltrated human society for decades, living among us, hiding their true forms. Their agenda was to control, to manipulate, to dominate. The truth flooded out into the world. Every government, every news outlet, every person with access to technology saw the evidence. It was undeniable. The boy felt a rush of emotion as he watched the faces of the aliens twist in horror and disbelief. They knew it was over. Their secret was exposed. The older man stood next to him, his face somber but proud. "You did it," he said quietly. "You gave the world a chance." But the boy wasn't paying attention to the victory. His eyes were locked on the screen, where a new message appeared, a final warning. We are not alone in this fight. Help is coming. He felt a chill run down his spine. Was this the beginning of something even bigger? The aliens had been here for years, but now, their reign was over. And yet, a new chapter was just beginning. Before the boy could say anything, the older man placed a hand on his shoulder. They're retreating, he said. We've won. But even as the boy began to feel relief wash over him, the weight of the moment hit him like a ton of bricks. This wasn't just a fight against aliens. This was about humanity's will to survive. About how a small act of kindness, a single choice to help, had led to the exposure of an entire enemy force. As the alien ships began to retreat, disappearing into the sky, the boy looked at the older man. His mind was full of questions. What now? The older man smiled, though it was a weary, bittersweet smile. Now, we rebuild. We find out who else is out there. And we make sure this never happens again. The boy nodded, still trying to grasp everything that had just occurred. He had gone from helping an old man with a box to saving the world. It seemed impossible. But he knew, deep down, that it was true. One moment could change everything. And then, as the city began to settle, the boy heard something in the distance, voices. People, coming together. Not in fear, but in hope. They were no longer in the dark. They knew the truth. And they would fight for it. The older man looked at him one last time. Remember, kid. Sometimes, the smallest good deeds lead to the biggest battles. The boy smiled, finally understanding the weight of those words. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing for sure, his life, and the world, would never be the same.